Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 25th January 2021. These are the articles that we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is titled In Agri Credit, Small Farmers Are Still Outside the Fence. In our syllabus, in GS3, we have a topic called Supply Chain Management, and in that there is a topic called Backward Linkages and Forward Linkages, especially in the context of agriculture. So in the context of agriculture, backward linkages mean how well agricultural sector is connected to the industry which provides the input for agricultural sector. Like say for example, land access is one of the input, labor, but more efficiently we are talking about things which matter the most, like access to credit. We are talking about access to inputs like seeds, fertilizers, etc. So the efficiency with which the backward linkages are established with agriculture determines the success and cost optimization aspect of agriculture. In normal economic terms, land, labor and capital is the requirement that is almost common for any sort of a sector. In this particular article, we will be talking about access to credit, the problems therein. In order to understand this concept, we have to know that agricultural census is taken as the basis for understanding how many farmers are there in our country. So according to this agricultural census, 86% of the farmers within our country are small and marginal farmers. That is, they have less than 2 hectares of land. What this means is access to credit becomes all the more important in an economy. But the major problem is in banking sector or any financial lending institutions parlance, the definition of agribusiness is loosely used. Because of lack of clarity in this definition, what is happening is, according to the data and examples given in this, let us take the example of Maharashtra. In this state, NABARD has given loans for agri-businesses. Now, 70% of these loans were taken in Mumbai. Now, what does this mean? Even though this is meant to be a agricultural credit, it is used by companies that are involved in agri-business. So, it is not actually reaching the most vulnerable section of the population, that is the small and marginal farmers. What is happening in this case is these lenders who take money from institutions like NABARD at 4 to 7% of interest as mandated by the government will in turn give credit to these small and marginal farmers at a very high rate. Sometimes they go as much as 36%, thereby magnifying the problem of these small and marginal farmers. This phenomenon is observed more in agricultural states like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Telangana. It is very, very high. And this problem has only one solution according to the view of the author. Instead of highly subsidized credit, which is causing a loss to the exchequer and also entailing a very negative effect on the ecosystem completely because of this distorted system, it is always better to, one, give direct benefit transfers to the farmer, and secondly, empower the farmer by helping them create the farmer produce organizations. The reason why small and marginal farmers don't actually get the price that they deserve is because of lack of bargaining capacity. Now, if they organize themselves into farming produce organization, which is nothing but a group of farmers coming together as a company, and when you create a company, the objective will be profit. There will be collective bargaining power, and if the FPOs stamp down their authority and don't budge that they will not be giving their agricultural produce at less than a certain price, then the ecosystem will encourage this competitive spirit. Competition is the only antidote to the monopolies. So it is the responsibility of the government to design such policies which encourage such competition. And the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which directly transfers a certain amount to the households is considered to be a good example. But we have to move beyond a household and go towards models like Raitu Bandhu of Telangana, or we have to take the example of Kalia scheme in Odisha. When we are talking about Raitu Bandhu, what happens is the amount that is transferred to the farmer is per acre. However, even this scheme is being criticized because most of the times we don't consider agricultural laborers in this. There are a lot of tenant farmers who don't actually get the direct input. So in that scenario, what happens is neither do they get this direct benefit transfer, and if we completely move towards this direct benefit transfer, they will not even get agricultural credit. So this is a double whammy for this sort of scenario. So therefore, the government must figure out a way where cultivator gets credit at a very low cost from the institutional financial agencies. So that is the gist of this article. This article titled "The Shipping Sector is at Sea" is taken from the Hindu. So we have to consider this article in the context of reducing the logistic cost in our country. Now, why is logistics so important in our country? Let us go back to our basics. Our GDP formula is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. In this aspect, when we are talking about X minus M, we are basically talking about net exports. We want to have net exports, that is, we have to import less and export more for increasing the growth of our country. Growth as in the GDP growth of our country. So this GDP growth will then result in redistribution leading to economic development. That is the basic funda. But the most important factor in ensuring export competitiveness is that the cost of taking a particular product from A to B should be as low as possible. If you compare the logistic scenario in India with that of the Western countries, US has a cost of around 6 to 9% of GDP for logistics. In India, it is somewhere around 13 to 17 or 18% of our GDP, which is very high. Even today, we are not completely utilizing waterways, which is considered to be a very environment friendly way of transporting goods from one place to another, and we are not completely optimizing our ports to manage the incoming cargo. Even till today, the ports that are preferred by a lot of importers or exporters or those who are generally involved in trading is just limited to one or two ports. Say on the western coast we have the Jawaharlal Nehru port in Mumbai, and on the eastern coast most of them prefer Chennai. But we have to remember that ports are classified into two types. Ports are of major ports, which are directly controlled by the center, and then we have minor ports which are controlled by the respective state governments. So since there is a major problem of handling the cargo, let me explain in brief. So whenever a particular cargo comes into our country, let's say for example it is docked at Chennai, what happens is as long as the cargo is staying in the Chennai port, if it is not completely taken out because of customs clearance. Now what is this customs clearance? So whenever a particular product is coming into our country, it has intense documentation behind it. This document should be verified and ensured that the person who is bringing that particular product or consignment into our country is complying with all the necessary measures to ensure that taxation is not avoided, the goods are legal to be imported into our country. All that will be checked. Now this should be as quick as possible, and if it is not happening, it will lead to delay in clearance. So what is happening right now is there is lack of awareness among those who are importing these goods. So as a result, a lot of cargo that comes into the Chennai port is just stored in the warehouses. Now this storage is beyond saturation and it requires immediate evacuation, because say for example this is the inventory. When a particular consignment comes in, it should occupy as less time as possible, because more and more consignments will be coming through another ships as well. But what happens is, since there is a delay, this gets congested and there is no place for this. So a lot of ships will be made to wait in high seas without actually coming into the port. What this will lead is evacuation time will be increased, and at the same time there will be loss for the person who is actually getting that product into our country, because he is not aware of the customs clearance procedures, and the officials involved in this are very slow in their duties. So all this will lead to increase in the cost of storage in warehouses, because you have to pay rent for that also. Therefore, because of this systemic inefficiency, the cost of logistics will increase multifold. In order to handle this, we need to plan it better. Now, what is that planning? That planning was envisaged in Sagarmala project. In this Sagarmala project, we are concentrating not just on ports but also the periphery. Till now, we were only discussing about imports. Now, the discussion should move towards exports and increase the capacity of our ports to handle more and more exports. For this to happen, the logistics cost when we are talking about exports is, if you are producing say a particular phone from a place A, the cost involved in taking the phone A to the place B where we have our port, let's say it is 10 rupees. Now the cost will be optimized if it is not just taken in a lorry, which is very slow and is very costly as well when compared to other modes of transport like inland waterway. Then it will become expensive for the final exporter. Because of this factor, it will increase the cost of the product, because it will also be a part of the expenditure incurred by the exporter. This will reduce our export competitiveness, because say for example a similar product or similar phone, when it is coming from China, the cost will be 1/10, and similarly even the exports cost will be reduced significantly because they have such well developed ports. Taking this example and understanding the problem of our entire shipping industry and logistics sector, we have realized that shipping is considered to be one of the most important area for our future trade development. Historically, if you take a look at India, the reason why India flourished was because that we always had integrated port management. Throughout history, ports developed in our countries because they were well connected to roads, and the cost of logistics was always low across ancient history as well. But due to post-independent legislations which focused on more centralization, regulation and bad policy choices, the ports in our country were completely mismatched. Sagarmala tried to adjust this anomaly by creating a concept of coastal economic region. Within this coastal economic region, what we'll have is a comprehensive development. Firstly, we'll focus on multimodal cargo decongestion or evacuation. What do you mean by multimodal? If transporting a product from A to B involves railways, roadways, airways and all the other options, we will design a plan that from point X to point Y, it will come through inland waterways, and from Y to B it will come through road. Rather than this combination directly from A to B, if it comes on a road, it costs 100 rupees. By taking this, if it costs 60 rupees only, we will prefer this multimodal route. So in order to ensure that, we have to develop waterways, we have to develop roadways, we have to develop dedicated freight corridors. So this multimodal development is the focus of this coastal economic region concept under the Sagarmala project. Similarly, we will focus on creating industrial clusters. Ideally, if the place of production is close to the port, it will save a lot of money. So we are trying to gather land and pool the land in such a way that these industrial clusters become zones of production where exports will be encouraged. There will be certain incentives for the manufacturers there. This will give a boost for Make in India as well. Similarly, when we are talking about Atmanirbharta, we are giving schemes like production linked incentives which incentivizes production. Those also can be integrated within the Sagarmala coastal economic region concept, and they will be managed by individual special purpose vehicles. Each coastal economic region, say for example in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, there will be two economic regions, that is the coastal economic regions, and each of them will be managed by a special purpose vehicle which will be having members from the state government. So even states are encouraged. For this, even PPP models are being considered. Therefore, the shipping sector is seeing a revival in the form of Sagarmala, and there should be certain accountability mechanisms rather than arbitrary decisions to ensure that private players are also incentivized in this entire game. If we do that, we are going to have a huge transition in the shipping sector, and it will lead to a multiplier effect in our economy. So that is the gist of this article.